It's time. Mark Watson, the ATM podcast. My name is Martin Devlin from the platform, and with me, an international broadcaster of much acclaim. We're going to talk about this news regards Fergus Burke, the White Ferns. Lance Dry, the Blaze coach, says, they got to learn how to field and they got to learn how to run between the wickets. The Knicks getting so close to that title. Warriors capturing the game day experience. The Crusaders firing everyone a big warning shot. Roygard RTS, lots to talk about, but let us start with Fergus Burke.
Apologise to me!
And he signed for Saracens, 24 years old, obviously going for a crap load of money there, Mark. But what does it tell you about the attraction or not of Super Rugby and even the All Black jersey, which he's now obviously giving up?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one, isn't he? Because I guess he is the Crusaders' hopes going forward, and he's been out injured with that Achilles injury. So we've seen, I think we saw Riley Hohepa take the field, didn't we, for the Crusaders on Friday night, and he looks the goods as well. But it's a real concern when you lose another promising first 5'8", just starting to get some more game time, just starting to sort of come into his own, a little bit of a late developer, and potentially in time could have ended up being sort of a second, third string All Black first five. Who knows? Possibly could have ended up being the first five for the All Blacks. But look, these young guys have to weigh this up. As I've said in the past, I just hope sometimes these player agents sit down with the players and go, are you going to be okay when you're 50 about this decision? When you're sitting there and you're financially set up, but you will possibly never an All Black where you could have been. Are you going to be okay with that? Because and I know, Martin, that your belief system in your 20s is very different to what your belief system is in your 50s and 60s. And you look back on some of the stuff you did in 20s or some of the decisions you made and you go, I was just a twat, or I was just a bit of, a little bit arrogant, or whatever it is. But yeah, look, the Super Rugby competition, the domestic game in New Zealand is just so fragmented at the moment. Talk of no NPC sort of beyond 226. We only really got the derbies to look forward to in Super Rugby. So much emphasis placed on the All Blacks, and I can understand why they're only an injury away, and maybe they're earning $1 million a year, and you say, hey, I'm 24 years of age, I can set myself up for the rest of my life now, and off I go. But I go back, Martin, and I was just reading an article I wrote for Stuff a few years ago about. I wrote about 3 or 4 at one point there, and I was just talking about when Steve Hansen took 52 players away, and half the team went to the Northern Hemisphere, and we almost had this franchise All Black team playing against Japan, and so many players at the time who weren't of All Black quality got All Black caps, and I think that is part of it. Have we through this guys getting a test cap here for 2 minutes and stuff? Have we somehow devalued what it means to be an All Black?
Look, I'm trying to sort of process all of this and think, look, I just get this overwhelming impression that the players aren't that interested in playing Super Rugby unless you are a guy that is up and coming and this is your stepping stone, and obviously to higher honours. But once you kind of make it, how attractive as a competition is it? Most of our best All Blacks, don't want to play it. They want to go on sabbatical. The ones that are left here have their rest and rotation and everything else, and even though that New Zealand Rugby tell us 25% increase in viewers watching, well, they'll never tell us exactly how many people are or aren't watching, which is the only figure that really counts. You look at this weekend, and the best game is the Brumbies versus the Waratahs. For the next weekends, 4 teams have been rested. It's the NRL is going on, creating record crowds. The Warriors have captured the public imagination and things. I just think that there are bigger carrots now for these players, or for some of these players, and that's what that's been reflective of, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I agree, and I see I saw Tana Umanga coming out, I think, on a Radio New Zealand article talking about how we've got the game is in crisis and the crowds are just not there, and I think that's part of it too. I mean, you're not running out in front of any decent sized crowds now. You're not getting that adrenaline rush and that feeling that you would imagine what it must be like as a kid to run out in front of that many people. And so I've always been this believer that, look, if you go overseas and play your rugby, you shouldn't be eligible for the All Blacks because it will decimate the domestic game. But I think we're past that now. I think the domestic game here is decimated. I don't think you can turn around people's habits now. I think it'd take a bloody miracle to get bums back on seats in any sort of form of domestic rugby going forward in this country. And therefore, based on that, why not just say, well, if you are playing overseas now, you are eligible to be the All Blacks, because I don't think you've got a game to protect here anyway. So if you're going to put all your eggs in the All Black basket, well, at least have a winning All Black team.
Apologise to me!
White Ferns, I was so pleased to hear Lance Dry. Now, we tried to get him on the show today, but he says he's tied up in meetings all day. Well, you've got to take him on face. I mean,
he's been pulled in, hasn't he?
Well, he has. This is as soon as he made those comments about the fielding and the running between the wickets hasn't improved at all. I thought finally, at last, somebody in a position of authority who knows is actually saying what the rest of us are seeing, that the cricket is actually really poor to watch. The women's domestic season finished a couple of weeks ago, and he's now tied up in meetings all day. I always thought that, and look, and I'll quite happily promote the conspiracy theory here. I thought as soon as he said that, New Zealand cricket are going to be on to him within about 30 seconds and saying enough of that. That's the last time you speak about that. Yeah, no one's actually allowed to talk about those things, which are glaring and obvious. And we've been talking about it for weeks. A White Ferns side that is seriously underperforms. They've got 3 or 4 good players, and that's it. And the rest are club cricketers. And I'm not being disrespectful here. But, when Sophie Devine says we're poor in the field, she's the captain. When a coach of a women's team says the fielding, the running between the wickets. If you remember, go back to the T20 World Cup where we were staging matches here, Mark, and some of the drop catches, honestly, you're looking at it going, you want equality, you want equity of payment, you want all of these things, but you're just not that good enough to get it at the moment. Is that a fair comment?
I think it's absolutely brilliantly summed up. Look, I had a friend of mine who wrote something up on Facebook, and I just thought he summed it up nicely. And he basically went along the lines of, why is nobody allowed to hold women's cricket to a similar skill standard as the men's game? We all understand that, the men will always be physically superior in terms of athleticism, speed and power just through, basic genetics. But there is no excuses there, Martin, for the dreadful lack of skill. The technique, the shot selection, the drop catches, the poor fielding, even the game IQ, it's all woeful. And as you say, the fact that nobody's allowed to call it for what it is nothing short of patronising. And these girls would not beat the Mount Abbott Grammar second 11 in a game of cricket. I seriously mean that, like the boys' side. They wouldn't have a hope in hell. And you can apply the same to the women's rugby team. I think, there are clearly some players who genuinely are, a world class and have the same sort of skill set. And you watch them and they've got the athleticism of what you'd see from Tana Rumanga or what you might have seen from Julian Severe back in his day with the likes of the Portia Woodmans. Women's football's the same. I think the standard was just dreadful at the Football World Cup. And I'm not sure what it is about teams, but they're the ones that are always crying the loudest about pay parity. They're the ones that have been elevated well above their level and suddenly being put on par with our men's, that we should be treating them the same, that they're elite athletes. And they're not. They are, most of them, in all fairness, from my background in sport, are nothing short of club athletes. I want to know where the Dana Johansons of this world are. Last week trying to create some big political feminist issue around the Marty Cup and how that might be sexist, calling it the Marty Regatta, because that's predominantly pointing at the Marty Cup, which is the boys' race. Where are they sitting down and writing the critical analysis of this women's cricket team? Where are they sitting down asking for the coach Klimkova to be sacked from the women's football team for just a series of dreadful results? Yet what I will say is, the sports where I think women, have absolute parity with the men's. I look at Erica Fairweather in the pool. Remarkable athlete. Swims as beautifully and as well as any of the men. I think Lydia Ko probably has the best technical game of any golfer in New Zealand. Her short game's as good or better than probably Ryan Fox's. An absolute privilege and a pleasure to watch. You go and have a look at, what's her name in this women's sprinting at the moment. You watch that, it's as good as anything the men produce. You never hear them jumping up and down saying, hey, pay me. But no, it always comes from our women cricketers, and the reason we're no good is because we don't have time. Rubbish. I remember training 35, 40-hour weeks, and I still held down a part-time job as a lifeguard at the Auckland Tepid Baths. Stop making excuses. Stop pushing and shoving this down our throat. Get out there and critique them, because the standard is bloody awful. And that's part of the reason, Martin, why no one's watching the stuff, mate. Hey, we give them out there, got the beautiful grounds, and we treat them like they're the men's teams. And I just don't think they're deserving of it. And I think part of the problem is we've put them up on a pedestal. They believe their own damn hype, Martin.
Apologise to me!
Cron and Schmidt together for the Wallabies, mate. Should we be worried?
Yeah, we should be worried. I mean, I've always said this, when you get 15 players on 15, you've always got a chance. We even saw that last year in the test, I think, in Dunedin, was it 2 years ago, where the Wallabies pushed the All Blacks pretty hard and we only just got out of it in the last couple of minutes or so. I always say this, good coaching and you'll get a good team. And I think the Wallabies have shown enough that there is, to consistently beat the All Blacks under Scott Robertson. I'm not convinced, but to certainly go and win a World Cup and 4 years now, it wouldn't surprise me at all with the Wallabies. I think Joe Schmidt is a wonderful coach. Mike Cron, clearly not particularly, I read an article, not particularly happy with the way Ian Foster was treated by New Zealand Rugby. So I think him going to the Wallabies is a bit of shove this up you know. You're going to treat people like that. Well, hey, I'm not going to show you a lot of loyalty either. So, yeah, we should be concerned. I mean, I think the All Blacks, as much as I know you've got a good relationship with Ian Foster and stuff, but, he lost 14 tests. He's not a great coach, and I think a different coach would have got better results. And I think Joe Schmidt brings that to the Wallabies, and they should be excited.
Have the Crusaders landed a warning that they're still a force, mate? And how dangerous could they potentially be now?
Well, I still go back to what Justin Marshall said. You don't want to be playing this team if you finish 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you've got to somehow meet them early on in the playoffs.